Better go this way. Hey, welcome to the channel. Today I want to talk about a post that I saw, um, from Reddit about a first home buyer that said they'd been to multiple properties and they had lost out, been outbid for these houses, and they started to really freak out that they were not going to get into the housing market. So they paid 10%. They made an offer 10% above the the rateable value of these homes, right at the height of the bubble, right at the top of the peak. And they've said since this purchase, the prices of houses that are the same as what they've bought are $500,000 less than what they paid. And they said they're reading articles. We have a lot of fraudsters, a lot of scammers that take advantage of people. It could be a lonely old man that has some girlfriend that he meets on the internet somehow and sends her $50,000 in some elaborate scam, and then realizes that he's been had. And they're saying $50,000 is of course a lot of money, and it's very terrible that this has happened to this person, but nobody blinks an eyelid when someone pays $500,000 too much for their house, because they're paying interest on that money. They still have to pay for it. This has cost them an awful lot of money. And really reading this, they go back through their decision making process of how they got there, and they said they get angry that they bought into this fear of missing out, and that the media hyped up that these prices were never going to end, that it was only a one-way ticket to the top. And they said, other than paying too much for their house, they're okay, but it's just a really tough predicament. And it just got me thinking, how many people are in that exact situation where they've paid so much more on a house. $500,000 is a lot of money. It's an awful lot of money, and that's gonna pay, have quite a toll on the economy, in that these people are now paying interest on this amount of money and wondering if they'll ever see a return on the investment. Because houses went up easy in the bubble, but it's going to be, in my opinion, a long way down, and then a long time to ever get to those prices that we reached. I mean, they were just so astronomical. If you look at the Great Depression, it took a long time for the stock market to recover. I mean, to those highs, it took a long time, years and years and years. And eventually house prices, they probably will recover, because they do tend to go up. But they went up so much, and the environment's changed. One, you're going to have a generation of people who were scarred from these decisions and all this hype. And two, interest rates aren't at 2% anymore. And are we going to see an environment that's going to be at 2%? Because the mess that made, the cleanup that has caused for the central banks to now deal with the inflation, I don't think they're ever going to want to cut interest rates to those levels again, knowing the consequences of those actions in hindsight. So we've had a generation here that that is going to be quite scarred, and a lot of these houses that people in that position, a lot of them were the bank of mum and dad. Mum and dad's house had gone up from 170,000 to 1.4 million, and they probably felt that, well, it'll just keep going up, it's not going to come down. And look, my kids, like, we're lucky we got into the housing market, and look what it's done for us. whereas our kids are renting and our rents are at all-time highs. So we've got to do something drastic to get them out of the rental market and into the property market. And they took out loans probably against their equity and gave it to the kids as a safe investment for their future. Well, if those kids default on the loans, that money's gone up in smoke. Now the parents have got a mortgage. Are the kids going to pay that back? So I think that what we're going to see over the next few months, I mean, we're at a rate of interest now that was supposed to be the peak. And I don't think that it's going to be the peak. I think that we're going to see, and it's not financial advice, do your own research, this is just my opinion, but I think we're going to see the need for higher amounts of rate hikes, because inflation isn't really going away, and there's been so many factors, man-made and natural, that are just so inflationary. Crops not growing, floods, earthquakes, things like that are just going to put a strain on a lot of supply. So yeah, we're going to see, I think a lot of this distress is there at the moment, and a lot of it isn't exposed yet. Like the people who are in that distress, they don't want to tell anyone, or maybe they do, but it's not making mainstream headlines. But I bet you there's a lot of it out there at the moment, and I bet you that there's a lot more to come. The people who are still on these lower rates might be okay, but when they go rolling over to a 6.5%, 7.5%, 8%, whatever. And the other thing is the stress tests. We have stress tests where I live of 8.5%. I think they're stress testing now. So if you're selling a house and somebody's got to borrow money to get that house, they've got to have a 20% deposit, and then they've also got to be able to prove to the banks that in an environment where interest rates are 8.5%, they can actually service that debt. So if that is just going to lower borrowing capacity, because a lot of people can't actually service. Let's say they can service $600,000 at 8.5%, but they can't service 850. Then they're going to start going to these sellers and saying, well, I know it's a bit below what you're asking, but this is the best I can do. Take it or leave it, because it's as much as the bank will lend me. That's it. Bank mum and dad aren't going to put money into property at the moment, because now it's risky. And the agents are going to know this. The agents are going to think, well, yeah, I'd love to be able to sell this house for $925,000, but how am I going to get money out of people at the moment when the cost of living's skyrocketing and the stress test is 8.5%? They probably, someone on $150,000 can't pass that stress test. So and if they're planning on having children and they've got to go to one income, they've got to think about that. They've also got to start having in their head, what if rate hikes go up? What if I buy this house and property prices keep going down? So I've got to make an offer to factor those things in. So there's in my opinion, there's a lot of downward pressure on the prices of housing right now. And then also, as interest rates do go up for things like saving accounts and things like that, before, if you left the money in the bank and you were getting no interest on it, who wants money in the bank, right? But now if you can actually earn interest on money in the bank, while it's sitting there, it's actually earning something. Whereas, and it might not be much, but it is something. Whereas, so to sit there and wait, you do get paid interest while the price of housing is actually coming down. So I think there's a lot of downside pressure there, and I think that this is going to lead to the wallets are just going to shut. People are going to be focusing on surviving through hard times. They're going to start maybe seeing workmates, colleagues lose their jobs, or friends lose their jobs, and they're going to think, well, what if I lose my job? and so the wallets are just going to shut because all the money is going to go into either inflated goods and services that we have to pay, um, and housing, servicing these housing costs. And of course, as I've said, it really is a lag with the fixed mortgages that have got to roll over. There will be people, mark my words, there will be people who have mortgages that know I cannot pay this mortgage when the interest rate rolls over, and I don't know what to do. What's going to happen when this term expires? Because when this is up, and there will be people, other people who think, she'll be right. Oh, I'll be able to service this debt. But as they actually then have the reality of the bills that are coming in, they might realize, actually I can't actually afford this. I've fallen behind. It didn't go as planned, and the cost of living could keep going up. Reduced hours at work, job loss, all sorts of things. So I just don't see this as a pretty picture. And I think how many people, like this Reddit post, how many people are actually in that exact position? Anyway, I'll wrap this one up. See you in the next one. Peace.